Well, here we are again. Oh, yes, and it's a we, because I have the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy with me. Whee! Ready for a Q&A episode of Sovereign Tech. And this is, I don't know, fifth or sixth one that I've been doing, along with a bunch of other content that's come out. We're 8 deep, as they say. And, well, you don't need to read into what 8 deep means, but...
You would say something like that,
Or maybe
Brian.
it's 9 deep. Oh, shit.
Oh, my God. Well, I know I've been on it before. I was on the first one. We did the review of the Fencer of Minerva.
Yeah, and we're still going to, that series, I will still be releasing the other 4 episodes.
Right. We've got more to cover. Yeah. I was going to say, this felt like my first time on your Patreon because it's the first time we've been doing a show for your Q&A in the studio.
Right.
The other one was in bed at a fancy hotel.
Yep. That's true. Yeah.
Watching anime porn and
watching
talking
hentai.
about how it made us feel.
Yeah, but you can check that out in the other entries in the near future.
That's right. That's right. I feel like we don't necessarily have to promote, the bonus content to people who are already hearing this because they're already subscribers. But, it's good content. Check it out if you haven't listened to it yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, it's kind of been a longer day for me. I was actually downstairs in the dungeon earlier, as I call it.
The dungeon?
Which is
what
the
are you
area
doing down there.
Yeah.
Well, oh my.
Yeah.
We're not even into that stuff.
No. But we are into working out, and that's mainly what gets done down there.
That's right.
But we're also, I've been on not a campaign, but we've been wanting to build a second studio down there, kind of a makeshift studio.
Because we both work so hard that we constantly have these conflicts where, not conflicts, but like you want to use the studio to do a show and I'm using the studio to do voiceover work. And you are such a gentleman. You always let me win out, and it's my studio.
It's your studio.
Actually.
Yeah.
But you're not a jerk about it ever, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And we, we just both have so much that we want to record that sometimes we can't all fit it into the same studio and still like spend time together. So the solution to this is to build a second studio. And where are we going to do that? Well, the only place we really have room is in the basement. Yeah.
So, one way you can help out with that, of course, is wishlist.zog.ninja. There's equipment there that is needed to make that a reality. Once it's, I still use it. Like this morning, I was actually recording down there, as I said. Go ahead.
This is stupid, but I was going to say, like, the only thing is I have to remember not to flush the toilet because if you're downstairs in Studio 2 and I flush the toilet in Studio 1, let's just say it makes a very noticeable sound.
Yeah. Sometimes you can hear it.
Yeah, I think it's more than sometimes. You're just being polite, but it's pretty loud. So we'll have to have a prohibition on flushing.
Well, maybe we can like rig some kind of light system or something, and there'll be a red light.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. That's a good idea. We'll put one of those little things that says on air.
Yeah, there it is. Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, if you want to help out with that, of course, there's the Amazon wish list, wishlist.zog.ninja. But really, you're already doing so much being a Patreon subscriber, and I really appreciate that. In fact, hell, look at this. Just got another $1 Patreon subscriber just while I'm running my mouth. That is fantastic. Yes.
Oh my God.
So thank you so much.
That's so cool. Congrats. I feel like we're on like WGBH, like on the telethon where they're like, call now and pledge and you'll get a free mug.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you donated or if you became a patron of Sovereign Tech at about 9:30 on August 7th, you know who you are. So thank you so much for that.
That is so cool. Yeah. And you know what? It's like playing bingo. Like if you subscribe to Brian's Patreon while we happen to be recording a podcast, we'll call you out.
Yeah,
we'll give you a little
I'll
shout out here.
Yep, I'll give a little yabba dabba doo. Anyway, that's that's an inside joke for Security Now listeners, but
I thought it was a Flintstones thing. See,
I'm
so behind. I'm so left out.
It's
I'm
totally
so out
a
of the loop.
Flintstones thing. Speaking of which, the Flintstones. There's a DC Comics is doing a new Flintstones comic. It is so good. It's ridiculously good.
Wow.
Because it's kind of like adult. Like they're not drawing them like they were the cartoons in the 60s. Mm-hmm. They're drawing them like kind of sexy. And I think it's awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah. But anyway, so I was recording downstairs. Well, not recording, but I was on air. I was actually on Declare Your Independence with, of course, the inimitable Ernest Hancock. And that was
Ernie's so cool.
Ernie's great.
That was great.
Yeah, it was a great time being on. I was on from the second hour up. We actually went into overtime, which happens every time I'm on there because I think he just loves talking, to me.
Now, Ernie's so great, but I have a bone to pick with Ernie because Ernie did the thing that a lot of guys do, men, and it's always men that do this to me. He made me into your secretary, Brian. Ernie called me, and I thought he was going to say, "Oh, will you be on my show? Do you have will you write an article, or do you have this going on, or what's up with you?" But he calls me. He's like, I need Brian's number. I'm trying to get in touch with Brian. I don't have his number." And I'm like, "Oh, well, gee, thanks. Let me just pass the phone right to him."
Yeah, because we're standing right next to each other.
So he got rewarded. He got what he wanted.
Yeah.
He was able to get in touch with you, but he did the secretary thing. And then, I've had guys email me and say, because I'm on Let's Talk Bitcoin with Andreas Antonopoulos, who's quite a famous person in the Bitcoin space.
Yes.
I've had people emailing me and say, "Hey, can you talk to Andreas about this thing? Hey, I sent Andreas an email and I didn't hear back from him. Can you ask him what's up?"
It's actually, you know what? He's not
even my boyfriend.
Yeah. All right. Now, I don't mean to necessarily insult the people because I certainly don't mean to insult Ernie. Okay. But
no, me neither. It was just,
no, I know.
Funny.
But I'm just going to say that it's so pathetic how often this happens for you. Not just for me.
It does.
And let me finish.
Okay.
You've gotten emails to, "Hey, could you ask Brian about this?" Mm-hmm. You've gotten stuff for Andreas. Mm-hmm. You've gotten stuff for Brett Venat.
Yeah.
School Sucks podcast.
Any guy that's hard to get in touch with. They ask me, they assume I have, I'm like, who is it that has a direct line? It's the Pope. He's got a direct line to God. I have a direct line to Brian Sovereign, Andreas Antonopoulos, and Brett Venat.
I mean, granted, three of the nicest guys, I'm speaking about myself.
Oh, it's okay. You can say that. I put you at the top of that list.
I appreciate
of the nicest guys.
I'm just saying.
All very quality, nice people.
I'm going to talk to Brett and I'm going to talk to Andreas and I'm going to tell them they need to start paying you. And I will pay you as well, of course. But anyway, yeah, isn't that funny? How that works out. But
yeah, I mean, I think it would be more fun if it turned me on in some way, but it just doesn't. It just makes me roll my eyes.
Yeah.
I wish I got off on that whole let me bend over and pick up a pencil and make you some coffee and go under the desk and give you a blowjob.
Oh my God.
Maybe at one point in my life I would have, but it's happened so many times. I'm over it.
Yeah.
I'm rolling my eyes. I'm so over it.
Yeah. Don't look under the desk. I'm not exactly over
Okay,
this
that's
right
great that it turns you on. Wait till somebody does it to you and see how you feel.
Right. Anyway, it's crazy. But being on Ernie's show today was a great time. If you want to find it, you can go to freedomsphoenix.com. That's freedomswithans.com. The kind of the whole advertising he does there. Anyway, and you can find the episode. And I'll release it as Patreon content with some extra commentary, in the future. Ooh. But that would be for again, August 17th, that episode, if you're looking for it.
The thing is, I hope you recorded the whole thing because Ernie always wants to talk to you for an hour after the show ends.
I think he did the whole thing. Yeah.
I hope you recorded it too. Did you not record it? Or
no,
you just trusted him?
With the computer I have, I can't afford to do something.
Well, I think he recorded the whole thing unless he had a technical screw up, because sometimes I listen to his podcast and he has people where they think they're talking off the record and they're like, between you and me, I would never say this publicly, and then they start launching into some shit that they couldn't say on the radio, and Ernie records it and puts it on his podcast.
Yeah.
I'm sure he doesn't mean to be exposing anything that's not meant to be exposed.
Right.
But it is actually really good, juicy content, and it's better than the stuff that they say on the radio, because they're like, oh, well, now that we're more in private, I can say this.
Yeah, I have come to, well, first off, I run off of the old cypherpunk adage that, just assume everything is broken. And I don't want to side tangent, but I'll just say this quickly. I really don't like talking to people on Skype. I don't mean for the show. I mean, that's fine if I'm doing it as for guests or to be a guest and all stuff. But to have private, quote unquote, private conversations, absolutely fucking not.
Yeah.
I really don't. And I know a lot of people want to talk to me that way. I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
Why don't you like it?
Well, there's a few reasons.
Okay, tell me why.
One of them is that I'm worried that the other end is recording it. And in fact, I think there's proof that, particularly in the Liberty Movement, which we're going to talk about the Liberty Movement in a minute, that they do record these conversations and they will use it against you.
Well, not everybody, but yeah, there have been people who have done that. Sure.
Yeah. And like, and they'll ask some crazy questions, about, and also, like there's so many cues, so many human conversation cues that you do not have over the internet. Now, virtual reality might change that. And I'm hoping that it does, because this is how much I hate talking, to a 2-dimensional screen. It just, I don't know if it's, maybe I'm just like so trained by Star Trek that I feel like I'm Captain Picard every time I'm on Skype or something, and I need to be yelling at the person, across the way. But
what would Captain Picard yell over Skype?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what he'd yell over Skype.
We come in peace.
But he'd say something to the ship on the other side. He'd say, "Why the fuck would you do that?"
Yeah,
like that.
He would say that if he wasn't on network TV.
Yeah. Anyway, and so I'm not one for talking behind people's backs or whatever. Okay, but I think there is such a thing as speaking to people with confidence, and I don't trust people.
You don't want to say personal shit if everyone in the world is going to hear it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I automatically run with the notion that, everything's kind of broken. So
right.
I do not get that personal. Maybe if it was like that important, but most people don't need that level of access to me.
Yeah. I admit I am a little bit concerned about that too. But the thing that mainly I don't like about Skype calls is that it's a meeting. It's like when I quit my job, when I stopped working in science and medicine, I wanted to have no meetings. I wanted to have nothing scheduled at a certain time where I had to show up and be prepared. And a Skype call can be like that. If you're on somebody's podcast, you got to show up. Sometimes you got to put on makeup if it's video. Yeah. And I know I'm sounding like I'm complaining about it, whatever. This is kind of what I do, but it's work. And it's like, it can be a tad stressful. Even if it's just a personal conversation, it can still be a little bit stressful to just remember to show up at a certain time. And I don't want that. I do it as a necessity to maintain friendships that we're not like seeing each other in person on a constant basis. And I'm willing to accept that trade-off, but it's definitely not the funnest thing to just sit down in front of a screen and stare at the other person's face on the screen for a couple of hours while you talk to them. Yeah. It's better than not connecting with anybody. I think it's better than that for me, and that's why I do it. But I'm not particularly thrilled to add more of them on, Yeah,
absolutely. No, I agree. I understand that. And there are people that I have to use certain mediums that I don't prefer, to be in contact with them. And that's fine. But as far as on a 1-to-1, this is my buddy, I'm going to talk. No way, Yeah.
Well, you might be having a little bit of a trade-off because, it is harder for you to maintain those friendships,
That's true. No, that's very, very true. So, yeah. Anyway, if it was that great of a friend, I would do it, but I don't know. Anyway, so where was I going? Oh, with Ernie, with talking in between breaks.
Yeah.
I learned, because I used to listen to Ernie's show when I was a nobody, that, I knew that's what it's fine.
Yeah, before honestly, you became internet famous.
I wouldn't mind being a nobody forever. Okay. But I learned, I already knew that this happens to people. And so the first time, because I've been on Ernie's show 5-6 times now, maybe even more than that. And I know that's what happens. And so I either, if he asks me a personal question, usually I'll just laugh it off and, just move on, or, I know to keep my mouth shut during breaks and everything, that he's always kind of recording. So, which is fine, whatever, it's just, yeah.
What kinds of personal questions does he ask you? Is he like, so how's Stephanie in bed?
No, he doesn't ask anything like that.
What does he say?
Well, I shouldn't say personal. Just like he'll just,
something you wouldn't want to be
something
on the
I don't want
record.
to answer, something I don't want to be on the record for, necessarily for answering. So anyway, I wish more people would be more conscious about what the hell they're saying, at any given moment on any of these services.
Yeah, it takes effort.
Yeah. One thing I love that some guy said, I will not take credit for this. I know I heard it on Freedom Fiends, but this is actually in reference to Steam It, where the person said something to the effect of, there should be a social network that does not one that pays you to make content, but one that pays you to shut up. And I was like, that's brilliant. That is exactly what we need.
Oh my God.
Anyway. So before I get into the two questions that we have, and one of them wanted to hear from both of us, which is part of the reason that you're on tonight, which is
right.
Great. I got an email today, and I was really honored by this. But I got an email saying, Brian Sovereign, we're fans of your show. We think you're doing, the kind of the Lord's work, that sort of thing. Of course, they didn't say Lord, but, the
Dark Lord.
Yeah. The Dark Lord's work. I'm going to use that from now on. That's great. Anyway, and that, we want you to know, we know you've been covering what's been going on in the Torrent scene. You've been very gracious with Artem Ballin, who of course was, the alleged, site runner, of Kick-Ass Torrents, which was taken down a few weeks ago. And they said, we're going to keep you abreast of what, absolutely.
They said abreast, right?
No, I said abreast because I love saying it. But I say it all the time.
It's a great word.
Damn right. Anyway, but they said that, we're going to keep you posted on what's going on. And also there are sites that are getting built right now to, really to take over, to take all of this to the next level. And we want you to let your listeners know. Now, I've had communications, and I've hinted at this, on Sovereign Tech, on main Sovereign Tech, in the past, where, there's people who I know what's going on, that I have a degree of confidence in, that, have told me, look, Kick-Ass Torrents really isn't coming back. And
oh, that's a shame.
Yeah. And I feel like I feel a degree of trust in that they're not sending me to some site that's going to be a honeypot.
Okay.
That doesn't make sense. And if they actually do, and then, I feel like they didn't know my show, and they should know I know a hell of a lot better than that. But anyway, so there's a site, it's called worldwidetorrents.eu, and it's just how it's spelled. There'll be, worldwidetorrents.eu. So, and right now, Patreon subscribers, you can jump on top of this and you can get access to it. And this is a really slick site. Now, it doesn't have a whole lot going on for it yet. They're just starting to upload there. But Nemesis 43, which I don't think is just one person. I think that's a group. In fact, I think the lead of it might even be a woman. But anyway, Nemesis.
What makes you think that?
Just in certain, I don't know. You can kind of read.
You want it to be a woman.
Nah, well, sure. Hell yes. I want all kinds of hackers to be women.
The power of suggestion.
Damn right. But anyway, and Nemesis 43 is very famous for like what they call 0 day, not 0 days as in an exploit, but 0 day comic book releases. Where like on Wednesday when the comics come out, somehow these things are scanned and fucking uploaded like in no time, or not even scanned, but web ripped, whatever. So Nemesis 43 now is almost, as I see it, is largely exclusively posting on worldwidetorrents.eu. And that's huge, and there's other stuff. So it's only been going for, the site's only been up and running for about a week and a half, maybe a little bit longer than that. But today you might notice Nemesis 43 isn't posting on Pirate Bay or Demonoid anymore. But everything is being put up on here. So I want my listeners to know you can take advantage of this.
Demonoid came back? I didn't even know that.
A couple of years ago now, 2014.
Where was I?
Back. I don't know. I said it on the show. No, you're
I forgot about it.
It's all right.
Sorry.
So worldwidetorrents.eu, you can check it out. And there is, I like what they're doing, and they're kind of starting off on the right foot because they know they're starting with a fresh, bunch of content, as to where they're not mirroring from any other site. All of this is, fresh uploaders, new accounts and everything. And so the way that they have organized everything is really in depth. like really, really in depth. Like under let's see, where's a good example here? Under apps, there's there's not just apps. Usually you can go to like the apps category and you can find this stuff. There's apps-handheld. There's apps-Unix. There's apps-iOS, or you look at books, there's books-comics, books-manga, books-poetry. Like
wow.
They really broke it down really nicely. And also, I think they do have some kind of, I'm not exactly sure if they're using an API or a cookie of some kind to allow for this, but it can keep track as long as you don't delete your cookies, and I don't mind if you do, and they wouldn't mind it either. It will show you a little new symbol next to anything that was added after you had last visited the site. And I think that's a very interesting feature. There's tracking possibilities to that if you are concerned about those, for fuck's sake, why are you accepting cookies in the first place? Okay. But I just want to lay that out there so there's some new ideas being implemented into this.
Yep.
It's a very clean interface. They're organizing things properly. That's the biggest problem with a whole lot of other torrent sites is I don't like how they organize them. Mm-hmm. But worldwidetorrents.eu. This is the website. You don't have to log into it, but they are.
Torrents
they
with
do
an
have
S or a Z?
With an S.
Okay.
Yes. And you don't have to log into the site. You don't have to create an account with it, to download, but they do have open registration if you want to use that. But anyway, if you want to check out a great site, especially one that you can get all your comics on, oh hell, worldwidetorrents.eu. I like what I'm seeing so far. And if there's ever a problem, believe me, I will let you know instantaneously. And of course you can follow me on Twitter if you want to do any of that. So, but I really
follow Brian on Twitter anyway. Is there anyone who's listening who doesn't follow you on Twitter? I doubt
think so.
it.
I think there's some that don't, but well, anyway, I do want to say that I'm really honored, by these are very elite torrent groups, frankly, that are trusting me, with some of this information. And so I appreciate that. It
was kind of cool.
Yeah. It was PGP encrypted, I was able to, verify the fingerprint and everything. I on a confidence level, I'm giving this a 9 to 10. So let's get into the questions here. Enough about that. But, Patreon exclusive for right now, as far as being able to get, access to that information. I want to start off with the first question here. And that, this is kind of I'm sort of taking a second part out of it. And it's, I'm listening to the Steemit, rebuttal post or episode. And this is an episode I did last week. I believe it came out last Friday. And again, this is getting recorded and released, hopefully, on August 17th. And that rebuttal post that I did was all about, I was kind of answering sort of the critics that had issue with episode 187 of Sovereign Tech, where I covered Steemit, honestly, kind of briefly. But this rebuttal episode that I did was not brief. It was 3 hours long. Episode
187, otherwise known as the steaming pile of shit that is Steemit.
Called Steemit. Yeah. Yes.
So you know where Brian stands.
Right.
Let's give the title here.
Yeah. And then, of course, the name of the rebuttal episode was dropping a big Steemit in the toilet. That was the name of the episode. And it actually, the cover.
You can be so crude sometimes.
I can be. And the cover artwork actually had me, squeezing a shit out, and I used the shit emoticon. It was great. So,
it had you closing your eyes tightly, making fists.
Yes. That's exactly what I had.
It was really kind of, it was really cute. You were fully clothed. You're not sitting on a toilet or anything.
That's the only thing. I forgot to remove the pants. I should have taken the pants off of it.
No. It came across exactly what you're doing in a tactful, relatively tactful way.
So,
and it was great cover art, great title.
Yeah. Anyway, so they were listening to that, and this is the rest of the question. Would you please elaborate on your perspective of the liberty movement in one of your future Q&A posts? Because I think I must have said in that episode that I really don't identify with it much, with the liberty movement and all that. And I will talk about more what that means now. And
did you say you don't identify with the ANCAP people who are getting on Steemit and promoting it?
Yeah, and I don't remember exactly what I said.
Because that's a whole different thing.
Well, yeah, I don't remember exactly what I said, but I definitely said something to the effect that I'm really kind of just distancing away from that. And we'll talk about this.
Yeah.
And they also, they said, or, talk about it in the Q&A episode or even on SASH. Now, I didn't know if you wanted to do this on Sex and Science Hour, Stephanie. to talk about this, but I don't think this is a subject that we would do on Sex and Science Hour.
No, I think this is better.
Yeah.
Did we talk about why?
No, we haven't talked about why.
Oh, because on Sex and Science Hour, it's more like we're trying to appeal to a broader audience than just the Liberty community. Like we're billing it as like a show that anyone can listen to and have fun. And I think it really is. We want to avoid getting too niche, but I think for your show, and especially for people who subscribe to you on Patreon, they are longtime libertarians or part of the Liberty community, whatever that means. Or at least that's how they found out about your show.
Right.
Because you started out like on the Liberty Radio Network, and you really started out in the Liberty community.
Yeah. Yep.
More so than just billing yourself as a regular old tech podcast who didn't have any particular politics.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah. So I mean, with Sex and Science Hour, we're trying to reach.
We're trying to go mainstream and sell out. No, not really.
Not really.
We're trying to reach a bigger audience. And to be fair, that show started out with a huge audience that was not necessarily libertarian or in the liberty movement.
And we know that because we got tons of emails during the first season of Sex and Science Hour where people converted to anarchism because of they said it because of our show.
I hate that converted. It sounds like they converted to Islam or something. Like it was people who were persuaded about the ideas of freedom.
There you go.
That weren't before or had never considered it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Converted sounds like a cult or something. Anyway, go for it.
Yeah, it's late. Anyway, it's not something, with Sex and Science Hour, we're trying to kind of steer clear to some degree of liberty subjects. I mean, it's sort of our baseline existence, being anarchists. So it kind of comes up no matter what, even if we use the terms or not.
Right.
But yeah,
the ideas are there.
Yeah, the ideas are always there.
Yeah.
So anyway, both of your opinions would be very welcomed and appreciated. I've been following the Free State Project and liberty movements for years and am seriously considering a move to New Hampshire. Not for the Free State Project explicitly, but because I believe there seems to be a greater concentration of liberty-minded folks, quote unquote, liberty-minded folks.
Yeah.
Cheers. So the question basically is that, could you elaborate on, or could I elaborate on my perspective of what I think about the liberty movement? And they want to hear from you as well. Stephanie.
That's why I'm here.
That's right. I mean, do you want me to start off or do you want to start off?
Oh my gosh.
Because I was expressing disillusionment. So that's the gist.
Right. So they want to hear us talk shit.
Yeah.
Okay. I can do that.
We can do that.
It won't be 100% shit talk, but I can do that.
Sure.
Can I get another frosty home brewed kombucha before I go into this?
Absolutely. You can get another one. We will do the magic of editing right here.
The magic.
And we'll do a little
okay, BRB.
Little dream sequence. And we're back. Look at that. Isn't that amazing?
I got my delicious frosty home brewed kombucha.
Yeah, not my cup of kombucha.
Not your cup of fermented tea.
Fermented tea, yeah. But that's all right. So anyway, again, the question is, what are our thoughts in the liberty movement? Like I said, I was definitely expressing in a previous, I've been expressing for a long time.
Disillusionment.
A lot of disillusionment around it.
I know when you got here, you felt it was oversold. Like
big time.
You had an idea of what it would be like in New Hampshire from videos you'd seen on YouTube and Free Keen and the blog Free Keen and Free Talk Live, the radio show. And was there anything else that contributed to it?
I think just the gist overall. Like there was even comments out of Mises of just like how great the Free State Project was, and even Keene in particular is like the northern capital of liberty and all this stuff. I mean,
and we're going to assume that people who are listening know about what all these websites are and just not explain it for the sake of time, because I think they do. If they're
Mises.org or freestateproject.org if you want to find out more and you don't know. Go ahead.
So you felt it was oversold based on those things, and when you got here, what you observed didn't really sync up with your perception of it based on observing it from outside.
Yes.
On YouTube and the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, that's not my disillusionment now.
Yeah, but I mean, you started to realize that pretty quickly, didn't you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. One of the first things and I think we've talked about this on other shows, like one of the first things you and I ever, during one of our first conversations that we ever had was
nobody reads.
Yeah. Well, we were in this kind of hangout building place, and, everybody's there kind of Well, just straight up. They're, smoking pot, doing whatever, hanging out and everything. And that holds no appeal to me. It's fine that people do that.
We were basically the only ones not indulging in substances.
Right.
Of any kind, alcohol, pot, whatever.
Yeah, because I don't care for any of that.
Neither do I.
Yeah.
And we were the only ones who were not doing that thing in a room full of people who were doing those things.
Right.
So we started talking to each other.
Yeah.
And one of us said to the other one, like, hey, like, have you noticed no one reads?
Well, no. I asked you, could we go outside?
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to say it around these people.
Right. And we started talking out on the porch, and we were like, we were kind of just had this bonding moment.
Yeah.
Where we were the only ones who were outsiders in this group of people who are all doing the same thing.
Yeah. And so, we kind of go around the corner of this place and like I exclaim, I don't just whisper it. I exclaim, I said, does nobody read? Like I was really like, I mean, you want to talk about disillusionment, that there wasn't any of that intellectualism.
Now, to be fair, there are some people who read and smoke weed every day.
Absolutely. I'm not knocking doing that action. I really don't mean to be doing that.
Mm-hmm. But it wasn't just the pot smoking. It was the overall vibe.
Yes.
You could have asked someone in that room, hey, did you Murray Rothbard? And they would have been like, who?
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That was like what it was like.
Yeah.
And there were other giveaways and clues to that besides just the fact that they were smoking pot. So I hope anybody doesn't take offense to that who likes their marijuana, cannabis, whatever. While
they read their Mises,
yes,
good for you.
That's right.
Yeah. So, right. So I definitely, my disillusionment kind of started early. No doubt about that.
Mm-hmm. You also had a pretty high state. I mean, you essentially left your entire life in New York and came to move to New Hampshire, and you had an idea of what it was going to be like based on the videos you'd seen on YouTube and the blogs you've read, and it wasn't quite like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, yeah, I mean, I could certainly feel, I could certainly empathize with your sense of disillusionment there. It's like, hey, I gave up my whole life for this. I changed my whole life for this.
Yeah.
Was that a mistake?
Right.
And you were thinking that at one point. You were thinking about expatriating, which is the common other thing that people do. A lot of times people.
Yeah, I was going to go to Korea.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah.
That's a common choice that people have. It's like they live somewhere where they're not quite happy, and they're like, okay, I'm a lone libertarian in a sea of status. What do I do? Do I move to New Hampshire and do I sort of stay and fight, or do I just move to Mexico or Korea or one of those other countries that's not the U.S. and just try to have a happy life there and maybe also be lonely, but be out of the U.S.
Right.
And I think that's a choice that everybody has to make for themselves. I think you should make that choice based on research and evidence, which means visiting those places that you might want to live.
Yep.
And also based on self-awareness, which involves understanding that no matter where you live, you're always going to be with yourself. So you have to be happy with yourself in order to be happy. Moving to a new city is not going to make you happy. It can fix some of your problems that come with where you currently live, but it can introduce a new set of problems that you're going to have to solve.
Sure.
No place is perfect. Every place has upsides and downsides, some more than others. And it's also subjective based on what you personally value and find to be good qualities in a place to live. So it's a very personal decision. I would never want to tell anybody where to move. I think you should visit and try it for yourself.
Right.
And if you don't have the means to visit, maybe you don't have the means to move either. Maybe you should consider saving up a little bit so you can do the research and actually figure out where you want to settle.
Yeah, I think that's sage advice. Absolutely.
Thank you. I think so too.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I guess we won't. The question asker wasn't really asking us, should I move to New Hampshire? But in case anybody's listening and thinking, well, should I move to New Hampshire? I think you should figure it out on your own based on what I just said.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, my perspective on the Liberty community in New Hampshire is a really complicated and nuanced one. Like, it's complicated. I've lived in New Hampshire for 10 years. I moved in 2006. I started creating a life here. I went to school here. I didn't become like a public or full-time activist right away. I kind of just moved here and I tried to establish a life. I didn't do anything like start a show, a YouTube channel, a podcast, because in those days there was no YouTube.
Right.
I I didn't start publicly putting myself out there with a blog. I didn't start doing activism that got news coverage or anything like that. I didn't really do anything for the first couple of years. I just sort of hung back and lurked. I organized a meetup so I could introduce myself to some people. I met some people that way. And as more people started moving to New Hampshire, I would gradually meet them too as time went on. Some of those people were really cool and I still know them. Some of those people were not cool and I did not want to know them after I met them once. Some of those people ended up in jail. Some of those people left New Hampshire. A lot of those people. A lot of the people I've met over the last 10 years have not. There's been a turnover rate. You know, there's the retention rate of people who move to New Hampshire is not 100%. Now, having said that, the idea of the Free State Project appealed to me when I first heard about it back in 2003. Because New Hampshire was easy for me to move to. I already lived in Massachusetts. I was a college student. I didn't have roots. I didn't have a business or a house or anything like that. Nothing was tying me down. After college, I could move wherever I wanted. And New Hampshire was right across the border. So it was really fucking easy. Yeah. I had visited New Hampshire and I liked it. I loved the natural scenery. I loved the skiing. I loved the hiking. I loved just a laid back atmosphere. And even before I would have called myself a libertarian, I wanted to move to New Hampshire anyway, because it just seemed like a better place to live than Massachusetts. So it is. So it fit, like it naturally fit me. So those were all the reasons the Free State Project appealed to me. I guess I didn't think about how long it would take for them to get 20,000 signers, but it ended up taking about 15 years from that point. Yeah. From the point where they chose New Hampshire as a state.
Which there's been 20,000 signers now.
And and they have met their goal. They did in 2016 in like February or March or something of 2016. So now the 20,000 number has been met and everybody has 5 years according to the agreement that they agreed to move to New Hampshire and then live their life in a way that creates a freer society, whatever that means to them.
Right.
I think this is very interesting because I'm a big believer in intentionality, like of choosing things in your life on purpose. Choosing your friends on purpose. Well thought out purpose. Yeah, well thought out purpose that aligns with your values and is going to bring you the most happiness you can possibly get. So the idea of moving to New Hampshire with a bunch of people who also want to make things more free appealed to me. And it seemed to align with my values. I thought, okay, this is a good chance of, bringing about happiness for me. And I chose it. I would choose it on purpose based on those things. So there's that aspect. The thing is, the Free State Project is a very big tent, especially as time has gone on. At first, it was a very small community. When I first moved to New Hampshire 10 years ago, there were people from all over the state that would come to my meetups that I organized. They would drive 2 hours to come to my meetups. Right. And not just because I was a young, hot girl. It's single. Yeah. I mean, maybe that had something to do with it, but I think it was also for the community, because there weren't enough people to have these libertarian meetups in every city in New Hampshire. There were just not enough people. As time went on, there became enough people. Right. And there became a ton of people, so many people that there started to be cliques and drama and infighting. Just like any community that gets large enough. And also, as the community has gotten larger, there's been a divergence of ideas. You know, there's people in the Free State Project who are just completely not on the same page as me. There's people who call themselves Free Staters. There's a lot of people like this, actually, who run for office in the Republican Party and think that they're doing something for freedom that way. Right. That doesn't align with my personal vision of freedom. Yeah. It never really has, but I guess in 2006, I would have said, oh yeah, they're probably making things better that way. I would have been more tolerant to that idea. Now, I don't think they're doing jack by running for office within the Republican Party. I think it's a complete fucking waste of time. Yes. Someone asked me the other day, why don't I vote? Oh, sorry. I thought I just heard something fall.
Yeah. I think it's just the rain.
Oh, got it. Okay. Someone asked me the other day, why don't I vote? And she said, do you think it's going to bring down the system? You're going to bring down the system by not voting. And I said, no, I don't think that at all. the reason I don't vote has nothing to do with trying to bring down the system. That's what the voters want, right? Or that's what the libertarian voters want. They're strategizing to bring about a desired outcome.
Yes.
Anyone who votes is hoping to bring about a desired outcome. I'm saying I'm going to let go of the outcome because I know I can't control it anyway. I know I can't control it. It's statistically insignificant. I have no influence over the larger political process, even on a town level. I'm just going to say I can't control it, so I'm going to let it go. And what would make me the most happy is to not pay attention to any of this bullshit, because that's what it is. It's just bullshit. Politics is Hollywood for ugly people, right? And I'm just going to live my life completely ignoring it. That's what makes me the happiest. And so that's why I don't vote. It's not like a strategic thing. It's a strategic thing to bring Stephanie happiness.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think you're hitting at it. Is that I think you're hitting at maybe part of what I was saying last on that episode that the listener or the emailer was referencing.
Yep.
Was that I agree with what you're saying. I agree with everything you're saying. And if it's just about personal freedom, if you're just at the point of personal freedom, what the fuck do you need a movement for?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Exactly. What do you need a movement for? Nothing. What do you need a community for? Plenty.
Okay.
A community.
Well, expand on that.
Okay. A movement is different than a community. A movement is a political movement. It's trying to bring about some goal or
an ideological change.
And that's by definition, that is what the Free State Project is. It's a movement. It's trying to move the status quo in a certain direction. Okay. The community aspect, I think, is very different from a movement. Because what a community is a social support network. Maybe it's people who align with you in certain ways, share your ideas, share your values, and maybe even goals. Mm-hmm. But what a community does is provide support, is nurture you, is provide business relationships, friendship relationships, maybe sexual or romantic relationships. A community is much more of a social support thing. And you can have much more control and influence over who's in your community and the people you hang out with than who's in the movement with you. Sure. A movement is kind of like a public thing that's kind of open to everybody. You can't really control who's in it or how big it is. Your personal community, your social support network, you can control who's in that. Absolutely. You have ultimate control over that.
Yeah.
So those are the differences I see, comparing and contrasting a movement with a community. The community aspect of living in New Hampshire, it sounds like that's exactly what the listener was interested in rather than the movement. The community in New Hampshire, I have to say, I'm pleased with it. I'm pleased with it because I know a bunch of nice people. I have enough people in my social support network who I know through the Liberty community that it contributes a lot to my life. And I like that. Having said that, there's a great community of people who are libertarians in many other places. In San Diego, there's a great group of people.
Yep.
In Austin, there's a great group of people.
Yep.
In, many other cities, and none is exactly coming to mind right now. But the point is, I think pretty much in any city, you can meet a few friends who share your values by putting yourself out there, and you could be happy with that kind of community.
Yeah.
Or in New Hampshire, it's kind of canned and ready for you, right? It's a network of people who's kind of canned, but you have to be really careful walking into that because just because somebody is a free stater doesn't mean they're a good person. It doesn't mean they're going to keep their agreements, they're honorable or trustworthy or whatever. It doesn't mean you want them to be your friend. And actually, most people you meet in New Hampshire as part of the Free State Project, you will not want to be their friend if you are picky and selective.
Sure. Sure.
So you have to be discerning wherever you go. In New Hampshire, there's a larger pool to choose from, and there's some great people here. But you're going to have to still find them and meet them like anywhere.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. I mean, the other option is that you could meet a bunch of people, in various ways, and then you could all move together to a certain spot. It doesn't have to be in a city, but I agree it's easier to meet people in a city, of course. But you could move somewhere, some village or in the country or something, whatever. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, and I'll admit, I'll say for myself that yes, there is still a comfort, despite the fact that I disagree with so much the Free State Project has done in the past year, despite a whole lot of disagreements I have, there is a comfort in that even with people that are more minarchists, you know, that are okay with using politics and all that, there is a comfort in that at least they sort of understand where I'm coming from. Or even if they don't agree with, you know, I like me thinking that voting and you know, dealing in electoral politics is a terrible idea. They already know why.
Yeah. They're at
like
least a little more aligned with you.
Yeah. They're okay
than the
with
average Joe.
Right. They're okay with the means. Why is that phrase escaping me?
The ends.
With the ends justifying the means. Thank you.
The ends justifying the means.
Yeah. Like, I don't think that voting, like, I don't think breaking my principles by voting is worth the potential end games. They think the minarchists think that's okay. You're not into it. Yeah, or not even minarchists, just anarchists that think it's all right to vote. Like, that's a comment I made, I know, in the Steam It episode, was that, like, I complain about this all the time. It is so super fucking clear in Karl Wapner's work, the guy that that coined the term voluntarist, that a voluntarist has no part in electoral politics. They don't vote. They don't run for office. But there's a bunch of people that call themselves voluntarists that do both. You know, and I mean, that's crazy. But, you know, at least there's a comfort, I feel, that whatever, regardless of what people are labeling themselves and all that, they more or less know where I'm coming from, you know, and I think largely even most people like agree that taxation is theft. So I can kind of feel this comfort that maybe they don't want to steal from me.
Right.
So there's a comfort in that. That is nice. And also, I mean, you know, when you are in a community like in the Free State Project, you know, with a lot of liberty-minded people, people do get to grow up faster. And I don't mean that they're babies. I just mean that, like, in this whole, you know, anarchism thing, they get to, because they're not
exposed to a lot of different ideas.
Ideas, but then also they're not being judged for saying what the bulk of the world considers crazy shit. And so they, you know, they're allowed to, you know, you're able to expand your mind.
Yeah,
without
you're
judgment.
nurtured. You can be nurtured,
or at least with less judgment, I should say. So, you know, there's advantages to that. So I still think, you know, with New Hampshire, I totally agree with what you said, Stephanie, and I think that's great. Is that really it's up to everybody's own choice, you know, what to do. I still think New Hampshire, I mean, as far as like liberty wise, yeah, it's kind of the place to live. Like, I think.
I agree with that. I do.
Yeah. Geographically, also, I think it's the most beautiful place on earth.
Yeah. Now, that's another thing I wanted to say. I personally think, and this is subjective, completely subjective based on my values and my preferences. But I think New Hampshire is just a wonderful, beautiful place to live. Even if none of the people I know came into the equation at all, just the ruralness of New Hampshire. I love the natural beauty of all the elements, the mountains. I love the mountains. There's beautiful hiking. There's beautiful things to do outside. You can get what you need without things feeling too crowded. You have plenty of space to just spread out. The cost of living is relatively cheap. And yes, the political climate with the laws and stuff is not that harsh compared to a lot of other places in the U.S.
Right.
You know, sometimes you feel really scared when you're walking around, I don't know, like one of those cities where it's like illegal to have plastic bags or some shit like that, or plastic water bottles, or, you know, things like that. You just don't have to worry about that stuff in New Hampshire. It's like pretty much just be a good person and you'll be fine.
Yeah, sure.
Now, I will say, if you're a person of color, if you're non-white, it may be more difficult for you, especially outside of some of the cities in New Hampshire, because it is such a white population. And I want to be sensitive to that because I don't know what it's like to live as a person of color, you know, in a place where you're literally surrounded by 99% white people.
Sure.
I can imagine that must be uncomfortable in some ways. And because you want to know that there are at least people around who understand what it's like to live in your skin.
Who perhaps have a shared trauma.
Yeah, shared trauma from the discrimination and racism that you might experience and the stereotyping and stuff like that. Sure. Everybody wants that. Everybody wants someone who can relate to them, sometimes without even having to talk about it. And you know that when a person looks like you and is viewed the same way as you by the rest of the world, they are going to have at least some shared experiences with you, and you'll be able to relate to each other in a way that you can't with others.
Yeah, I mean...
So I will say, Vermont too. Vermont is actually the whitest state in the U.S. I think it's 99% white. New Hampshire's somewhere around 98 or 99. I will say that I think it might be tough for people who are people of color, you know, who are non-whites.
Sure. I think I think it's a hard movement for people of color.
Yeah.
Fuck even moving somewhere. It's just like, it's a tough movement, because you have so many people that are completely writing off what you experience, on, perhaps a daily basis, or at least at various points throughout your life. You have people that completely write off the concept of driving while black, which, folks, it's a fucking thing. Okay.
It is
I don't
a
care
thing.
how many anecdotes
God.
I don't know how much anecdotes you need before it becomes fact. Okay. But it's a thing. Where people totally respect.
You don't need anecdotes at all. There's statistics.
Well, I would hope, but I don't know. People seem to ignore that shit because
they do when it doesn't
that's a big
fit their
problem.
Worldview.
Yeah, that's a big problem in the liberty movement, is that, well, racism isn't a thing, and it's like, yeah, okay, let's have a few more riots, a few more shootings to find. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's tough, in that regard overall. So
yeah,
do you have anything else you wanted to mention on New Hampshire? Then because I kind of want to get into the movement aspect.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, it's just such a big, topic, and I'm scared that I didn't say everything I wanted to say. The property taxes is something that people ask about a lot. Now, I'm on a mission to solve this problem because it's true. The property taxes in New Hampshire are high. And I don't think I'm going to be abolishing statewide taxes or anything like that anytime soon. So I'm just going to accept what taxes different places have and try to work with that and try to find the lowest one that's going to work for me. New Hampshire does not have a state income tax or a state sales tax. However, New Hampshire has a business tax where if you have a small business like me, I'm a voice actor, and you make over $50,000 a year, you actually have to owe a business tax to New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know about.
And it's high.
It's high. It's like 9 or 10%. Yeah. It's really fucking high.
That is actually like that. I would totally respect somebody saying that's a deal killer.
It might be a deal killer for you. It absolutely might.
Yeah.
There's that. There's also, while there is no sales tax on things that you buy in New Hampshire, there is a restaurant tax. There's a meals and hotel tax of 9%.
Right.
So if you're someone who loves to go out to restaurants a lot, there's some good restaurants in New Hampshire, but you're going to be paying 10% extra for your food. And that could be, that really does add up.
Yeah, it can.
There's also high property taxes. Okay?
Which you were mentioning, yeah.
And now, of course, none of these things I'm saying is a justification. So is a justification of New Hampshire should have a sales tax or should have an income tax because then the other taxes would go down. Bullshit. Then the other taxes never go down when there's a new tax added. So I'm certainly not advocating for that at all. Okay. And, whatever happens politically is kind of going to happen anyway. So I can't control it, but I'm certainly not advocating for extra taxes to be put on because I don't think the existing taxes will go away or go down. But certain taxes can hit you hard depending on who you are.
Yeah.
If you're on a fixed income, if you're retired or independently wealthy or whatever, but you own a expensive home in a city in New Hampshire that has relatively high property taxes, you might be paying out the ass for your home in a way that you were not before.
Yeah.
And it might not be a good place to live for you. So it kind of depends on your individual situation. There are a few places in New Hampshire that have relatively low property taxes. There's several spreadsheets floating around that list the property tax rates of all the towns in New Hampshire. So you could probably choose where to live based on that. And there are some places in New Hampshire that have no land taxes, but you're basically looking at living on the side of a mountain in like a state forest, and you probably
they're unincorporated areas. That's what they're called.
There's a few unincorporated areas that don't have taxes, but again, that could change too. Like if some kid has to go to school, what do? They might institute some kind of a tax, even though it's a village or an unincorporated area. I don't know the legal status of that. I just know that property tax rates do change. I look at houses on Zillow sometimes, and I look at the property tax history, and they can go from paying, they can double in a year. the property taxes that somebody paid on their house based on the assessment, the tax rate, that kind of thing. Maybe you don't even want to buy a house. Maybe you just want to rent. So this is not a concern to you. But again, property tax rates are reflected in rents. So either way, you're going to be paying for it.
Sure.
So I'm just saying although the tax situation sounds better in New Hampshire on paper, it may not be ideal for everybody. These taxes could hit you hard, the specific ones that New Hampshire has, and you have to figure out what's right for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you're running a business, like if you're opening it, the business tax is one that was newly discovered, to me anyway. It's not a newly implemented thing. It's been around forever. But if you're a business that's moving, like say there's this real appeal of moving, say like a retail store or something like that, something that deals in hard goods that, has a storefront and all that. Keep in mind that while yes, that tax rate is high. Okay. The amount of customers that you get, especially if you're along a border city of New Hampshire from other states, could easily make up for that tax.
Yeah, they do. They come
bracket.
Across the border.
Yeah, because they know, no sales tax. They're going to come to you.
Yeah.
So, there's advantages, disadvantages. There's a lot of thought to put into this. And, admittedly, like maybe I didn't do enough, when I first moved here, that I didn't, look into it enough, that I didn't go far enough. But that's a story for another time. Like it wasn't an emergency move, but I really I just wanted to get away.
Yeah. You were leaving an abusive situation. So you had to go.
Exactly. So it's really important. I think, to do your homework. And Stephanie, you laid out just a ton of most of the pros and cons I can think of.
Oh, good. Thanks.
As far as it goes.
Great.
Yeah. So anyway, is that all you wanted to say on New Hampshire?
Go ahead, speak.
Okay.
Say the thing you wanted to say.
Well, that's okay. Well, I want to talk about more of the liberty movement in general.
Yeah.
Because this goes beyond New Hampshire.
Okay. Yeah. Let's move on to that.
Yeah.
Sounds
and maybe this is the only question we'll get to is this one, and that's fine.
Oh, wait. Okay. Sorry. Before you say that, one more thing about New Hampshire. If you're wondering what the scene is like, because some people want a description of the scene, the community. There's 2 events every year. There's Liberty Forum and Pork Fest. Yes, that happens. That's just like for a lot of it's for people who are from out of town to come and visit and see what it's like.
Yeah.
In an environment that's like partying and talks, and it showcases what Liberty Forum and Pork Fest are like, not necessarily what everyday life is like in New Hampshire. It's like a convention and a party, and it's fun. Then there's like a lot of parties that you'll get invited to, and like private social events that you'll get invited to once you start making friends.
Yeah.
Those are fun. I've never been invited to so many parties and events in my life since before I moved to New Hampshire. Those can be fun if you have find the right group of friends and so forth.
Right group of friends, or if you're into the partying thing. I mean, there's just always something.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. If you love to party and do drugs, you could do that every night of the week.
Yeah. I mean, it's just nonstop.
If you wanted to.
Yeah. But that's got to be your bag. And it's fine if it is. It's just not.
Absolutely. Yeah. But if your thing is like meetup, like philosophical kind of meetups, you can do that too.
Yep.
There are those meetups that go on.
Yes.
So it's not only partying, and there's family stuff too. There's like a porcupine family group, where people take and meet other people who have kids and like take their kids to do stuff. I don't know, cause I don't go to those, but I know it exists. There is a community market day. This is really interesting to a lot of people because they're wondering about like commerce and like barter and trade and local business. Well, there are these community market days where people can buy and sell stuff, and they all kind of come together. It's like a social event, but it's also a marketplace where they are buying and selling stuff. And they're not just buying and selling like so-called like free market goods or things you couldn't get in a store. They're buying and selling all kinds of like handcrafted items, like handcrafted woodworking.
Yep.
Meat that's produced on somebody's farm and vegetables. There's like CSAs. There's like handmade soaps. Like those are some of the things that I think are really cool about the community market day. And then there's like countless other stuff too.
Sure. Plenty to do.
Yeah, there's plenty to do. What was the other thing I was going to say? I mean, that's basically it. Like you'll find it. I would say it takes at least a year to find your group of friends.
Yes. That's an important point.
Meet a ton of people if you move to New Hampshire or even if you visit. But what's going to happen in the first year that you're here is things are going to shake out and you're going to find who the people are who you really want to be your friends. I think you have to really kind of know people for at least like 6 months to a year before you really decide if you want to be like long-term friends with them. That's just me. That's my opinion.
Yep,
but
sure.
People usually show their true colors or show their track record during that time frame in a way that tells you whether you really want them in your life or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a year is a good period of time to find your friends. It may take you even longer than that, but at least a year. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, thanks for bearing with me, Brian, as I interjected that. Go ahead and talk
good.
about the broader liberty movement. The boobment.
The boobment. Yeah. So, okay. So I feel like, yes, people picked up whatever I expressly said. I don't exactly remember, but people picked up on my absolute disillusionment with the movement in general, not just the Free State Project, not just, any of that, which, by the way, I think we were both saying, we still love living in New Hampshire and it's really enjoyable.
Oh, yeah. I'm not moving.
No, right. Right.
I like it here.
Exactly. And it's still enjoyable to hang out with a lot of the people here. And, it's great. Boy. So the liberty movement in general, I heard Michael Dean say it pretty well. I'm going to quote him. That way I can kind of back away. But he said, libertarians as a whole are idiots. Like as a group, they're stupid. This is true. I think this is true for anything. Like anytime you get a large group, a lot of intellect starts to go out the door just by nature of group, interactions and all of this. So I don't mean to insult anybody hearing the sound of my voice. There are certainly plenty of people I don't mind insulting. But well, first off, I debate, I highly, highly debate. I guess my biggest problem maybe is celebritarians. Okay. Which is the term meaning libertarians that have made somewhat of a name for themselves or something like that. Right. Maybe some people put me in that class. I don't necessarily feel that I am.
I like to call myself a B-list celebritarian.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why, because I've been public. I've had podcasts and, websites and things like that. I do put myself out there to a certain extent, but I've never really wanted to be someone who seeks fame. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the main reason I put myself out there is to meet cool people and to connect with them. And it's not because I need attention or anything like that. A lot of times I want to recoil from attention, from public attention. I want to just be left alone. I want to be private. I think I'm more into privacy than actually most people. I don't really like to even post pictures of myself online and things like that. So as a result, I never got to that level of celebritariandom where I could, post something on Facebook and get 500 likes or I've never posted videos. I don't do video. Right?
Yeah.
I don't even spend a lot of time promoting my podcast or anything like that. I don't promote anything.
Yep.
Pretty much. So you and I have never attained that level of fame, but I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing.
I think it's a good thing. I know sometimes, Brian, you wish that you were given more credit. Like you wish you were invited to speak at things and invited to be on other people's podcasts. But what we've realized is that shit is all a scam. Like most people who are speaking at conferences and supposedly getting paid these big speaker fees, they're asking to speak at those conferences.
Well, that's part of my point, is that, a lot of what you see of the liberty movement isn't real.
Yes. A lot of it is not real. You're right.
It's totally fake, made up, manufactured. It doesn't exist. And, I remember I used to feel insulted when Motherboard or Vice, well, they're the same thing, whoever, TechCrunch, whatever fucking, or Wall Street Journal, whoever was writing up about it would be writing up about libertarianism or anarchism or something. And they'd call it.
Oh, as though they have the inside scoop or something, right?
Okay. But they would call it it's an online movement. It's been called that for probably 20 years, maybe longer. Okay. As long as there's been the internet, there's always been claims. Oh, it's just a bunch of anarchists on there, and all this. But anyway, but libertarians in particular, or the liberty movement and all that, I think they're right. I'm to the point where I think that they are largely absolutely right, that this is, and not to say that I'm against this idea of having online sort of communities or something, or, you know, online. Yeah, I guess community is the best word I can come up with. But yeah, I don't, the liberty movement, as people understand it, like as the average person that comes in and sees it, perceives it, it is not what they think at all.
There's a lot going on the internet, and what goes on the internet can be distorted and doesn't necessarily reflect reality. Right?
Yeah. And even beyond the internet, I think a lot of the people, like you take Porkfest that you mentioned earlier.
Yep.
You know, you get 1,500 people show up at that, right?
Yeah.
I bet you maybe 500 at best have any fucking clue about anything like, you know, libertarian kind of intellectual wise, or, you know, that has any idea about the history and all of it. I think a lot of people just show up. Oh yeah. Fuck the police and drugs. But I mean,
it certainly seems that way sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
like,
true.
Like what conversations are you going to have? You never see that many people lined up in even, you know, standing around like these buildings for anything. You're lucky, I think, I mean, granted, some of the the buildings can't necessarily hold 500 people, but I'm just saying,
yeah.
You know, it could be Patrick Byrne talking and maybe 200.
I know. And yeah, you're bringing up a great point, Brian, which is anytime you have a big tent, you're going to get a lot of clowns in there.
Oh, sure. That's what tents are for. It's for clowns and tamed lions.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have felt really disappointed to see some of the corners of the liberty movement, or now maybe they're becoming more than corners, but like there's this alt-right segment of the liberty movement that's been on the rise lately in the last couple of years, as the alt-right has been in general, but definitely in the libertarian world, it's very strong because a lot of people already held certain sentiments that are kind of aligned with the alt-right or men's rights activism or whatever. And I feel really fucking scared about that. Trump supporters too.
Sure.
There's like Trump people that have kind of aligned themselves with like the libertarian circles.
Well, there's libertarians that have aligned themselves with Trump.
Yeah,
Walter Block.
There have been libertarians.
One of
who
the biggest names in the movement, you know,
Yep.
is starting a whole pack or is running a pack or
well, he's
a group.
always been sort of like a
he's
conservative.
nuts.
Yeah, like a extreme conservative. Like definitely would describe himself as to the right, but yeah, I don't know. Like the right stuff just is a huge turnoff to me. I know there's a lot of people too who are like very anti-PC. There's always been this strong anti-PC current in the liberty movement. And that's just bothered me more and more as time has gone on. And I've actually, you know, I guess developed a stronger sense of just decency, like compassion for people.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck does it hurt you to like just be a little bit considerate of people's feelings and maybe understand like what I'm not saying they make it out as though it's this like ridiculous caricature. Like there's actual people on college campuses that are sitting in padded rooms, coloring with crayons, saying, I'm a Z, I'm a Zer, I don't have a gender, and I'm actually an otherkin, furry, transracial, transable, whatever. And you better respect my identity. There are so few of those people out there. And most people just want to be treated with basic fucking kindness and decency.
Sure.
You know, and not called the N-word and not called, like, not made sexist remarks to. Is that so much to fucking ask? Like,
well,
it's really not that big of a deal.
Yeah, exactly. Now you're hitting at what I'm saying.
And then and then there's people like Milo Yiannopoulos and people who follow him who are like, yeah, let's just be anti-PC because you know, it's a problem that you can't say that there might be some problems with PC culture. So let's just like call everybody an N-word on Twitter. Right. Just because we can.
Yeah. But that's the thing. None of that's real. Like Milo's real, but the millions of people that say, you know, followed it or, you know, started enacting on what he was doing on Twitter, they're not real. I mean, some of them are, but I think a lot of them are not. The case with, you know, people at colleges wanting to be called Z and all this different stuff and doing Black Lives Matters thing. In fact, at Dartmouth in New Hampshire, that got a lot of news coverage over, you know, the whole, or a lot of some very extreme social justice views were being expressed. And the way it got reported was that, oh my God, this whole campus is nuts. You know, because because everybody on this campus is just a bunch of, you know, SJWs or whatever. And there's this huge problem when no, most students there saw that march happening and all this stuff, and they just watched it and they just didn't care. It was very few people.
It was.
Okay.
It was very few people that were involved.
Yeah.
And when I was at Dartmouth, I got internal emails sometimes that there were incidents on campus like this Halloween party where a bunch of white people dressed up like black people and were making fun, like, you know, we're eating fried chicken and like wearing wigs and things like that. Mm-hmm. And there was like, you know, there was another incident. I can't remember what it was, but it was something that was offensive to Native Americans. And Dartmouth like was started to educate Native Americans, and they had this like into Christianity.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's pretty much to convert them. Yeah.
There's a history there, and like people were just so ignorantly just like shitting all over it, and just doing something incredibly ignorant. And people are like, yeah, they should be able to do that. And to me, that just sounds so tone deaf. You know, it's so ignorant for lack of a better word.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And I don't want to be associated with it.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I agree with you. Okay. But I mean, like now, but my point, you know, as far as like what is going on with the liberty movement, what is with my disillusionment, it doesn't fucking exist. Okay. Like it really doesn't. And if it did, it's already splintered and fallen apart. And that's okay too, you know, for disagreements and all this stuff to happen. Okay. What I mean by it not existing. Okay. You take these celebritarians, for example. I don't, you know, when you look at them online, because that's really the only way you can engage with them and largely interact with them, because again, it is kind of true that outside of New Hampshire, it's very much an online thing. Okay. Yes. I firmly believe there's like 2,000 real people that have moved to New Hampshire and that are liberty minded. I think that's true. Okay. But online, you see their interactions. This is how you gauge if somebody's a big fucking deal. Okay. How many views does this person get on YouTube? You know, how many likes do they get on social media and all that stuff? And my point is that I don't think most of those likes, I don't think most of those people are real. They're either accounts created by the celebritarian themselves, or they're doing, of course, what I call the Bangladeshi special, where they're hiring people. They're hiring like marketing firms or something to make them look like they're a big fucking deal.
Right.
Okay. Because it is.
Oh, it's proven that people do this.
Okay.
I mean, you can see screenshots of them and they're like literally from Bangladesh.
Yes.
No mutual friends or anything like that.
Right. And I don't mean to insult the people in Bangladesh. I know they're trying to make a living.
Yes.
Okay. But you know, so while I don't think those people are real, here's the alternative is that I think if they are real, then the liberty movement is full of idiots.
Right. And if they're not real, it's full of fakes.
Like, I mean, those are really the only two possibilities, because the celebritarians, the rampant, like, contradictions, the rampant, scams, fraud that they have enacted that are known. It's not even a question. Like, it is as provable as something can be provable that some of these people have engaged in fraud. You know, and I mean, they've even admitted it, say, on video or something like this, or that, I mean, there's so many problems. And for people to interact online with these celebritarians and say, oh, you are such an inspiration. You are such a visionary. You are, I mean, like, it doesn't make any goddamn sense, you know, and I don't believe, like, it's very hard for me to believe. And, you know, I know I'm going to lay out this number and I want to make a point here. That there's, I don't know, some popular, you know, YouTube shows or the Liberty shows that maybe get, I don't know, 20,000, 30,000, or maybe 14,000 on average views or something like that. I just don't believe there's that many people that are that into Liberty. Okay. And people will say to me, the first thing I think somebody would critique me with is that, yeah, but there's 20,000 signers for the Free State Project. Well, I can pretty much guarantee you that some of those are not real. Some of those are bullshit. Okay.
At the very least, they're people who signed up at one point, but then are no longer interested, or they lost their contact info or whatever.
Right.
Moved, left no address kind of thing.
Exactly. So, you know, I don't believe that it's that any of that is out there. And so I sort of like, I get the idea of fake it till you make it. Like, I understand that that's like a thing that people do. But like the stuff, you know, even the things that a lot of these celebritarians are talking about is so banal. Like, it's so basic. And like, there's no, like, I'm not seeing conversations evolving. You know, like I'm not seeing that next level shit.
I think it's probably because I agree with you that it sometimes feels like the conversation is not evolving and there's not new ideas that are coming in. I think maybe part of that is because so many people, there is this turnover problem. Mm-hmm. Like so many people are either coming in new and these ideas are new to them, even though they're not new to us. Uh-huh. Or, you know, the people who have been around for a long time have gotten fed up and left after a certain amount of time. And we're just the only ones who've stuck around long enough to witness this shit coming back over and over again.
Yeah, but there's issues with that because some of the people that I see engage with some of this banal shit are people that have been in this that have been in this game longer than I have.
Weird. Yeah, that's weird.
And that like
And in what way are they engaging? Are they like, yeah, good job, man.
Yeah, clicking like and sharing and I mean, and it's stuff that like really we got to be beyond this. And some of it is even ridiculous in what it says. I mean, you know, and I really can't think of examples at the moment necessarily to bring up. And yes, people think differently, and that's all fine and dandy. But you know, it's just one of the things that really excited me about libertarianism and anarchism and all that was that it felt kind of like a meritocracy as to where
oh, there's no such thing as that.
No, there is no such thing. Yeah. Okay, but like it felt comforting that there was this, or like that seemed to be the idea. No, there's not going to be any laws. You know, you're going to make it on your own merits. Like that's how you're going to have to do it. You're going to just have
or at least that's the way it should be.
Yeah, the market's going to speak, and either your stuff is shit or it isn't. This stuff is shit. You know,
yeah, where's the market?
Where the fuck is the market when it comes to the realm of ideas? I mean, and some of it is so provably bad. Like you could easily knock it out of the park. Uh-huh. You know, with like the first thing that'll come up on Google, you could kill it. And yet it just, people spew it and they just roll on. I get it that there's beginners, there's new people into everything, and that maybe there needs to be kind of the quote unquote elementary school, you know, that helps people along and all that stuff, you know, and a lot of that's fine. But, you know, when you're, I don't see anywhere where the really like edgy conversations are really happening. I don't see it. Most of the libertarian media is regurgitating the same bullshit that every other one talks about. Yeah. They're crap.
Yeah, I agree with you. There.
Yeah.
I felt a lot of intellectual boredom in the liberty movement lately for years, actually. And so I've started looking outside of it for ideas. And the thing that stood out to me most is like sort of just how to be happy, I guess. And that's not exactly libertarianism, you know, that's outside of it. Like it ties in because freedom and happiness are linked, but it's not exactly libertarianism. And there's different people too. You know, there's lots of people who have lifestyle business blogs and they're talking about freedom, but they're not libertarians. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, so that kind of leads to the second point is that also philosophically, or do you have more you want to comment on that?
No, I'm just saying it feels stagnant to me too. The liberty movement intellectually feels pretty stagnant, and actually stagnant and or going in a dangerously right direction that I don't like.
Yeah, it seems like it's almost going backwards.
Yes, backwards. That's right. Exactly. Because conservatism is going backwards toward the past.
Right. I mean, when you have Walter Block, who can somehow write that incredible privatization of highways book, and then he starts, you know, cheering on Trump. What the fuck is going on?
And spanking kids.
And I mean, it just doesn't. Yeah, it really does seem to be going backwards.
Even fucking Trump didn't spank his kids. Come on, Walter Block.
Good one. Oh man. Yeah. So, but you reach into the second point is that also I think there comes a point, and maybe this happens for a lot of people. And look, I'm not saying that I'm advanced, and Stephanie, and of course, first off, I should have said this earlier on. But obviously your and my opinions are our own. Like Stephanie, what you think is your own, what I think is my own. We are not representative necessarily of each other's, thoughts.
Yeah, yeah. And I like that you say that because I get all these comments like, oh, Brian hates everything. I'm a little more diplomatic than you are, Brian.
Right. But the personal freedom thing now, So I'm not saying that somehow we're advanced in liberty or something. Believe me, there's so many great books, so many great talks, so many great works that are, liberty oriented that I have not integrated, that I have not had the opportunity to get into.
Well, anyone who thinks they know it all doesn't know it all. Because you need a lot of self-awareness and knowledge to know that you have more to learn. And I think we both acknowledge that we both have a lot more to learn.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, we're on a path. People are on a path. I'm on a path. And that path has largely led me to personal freedom. Now, I've heard this from other people as well. Mm-hmm. Okay. This isn't just you or I. And I think you get to the point with these ideas, with anarchism, particularly, to where personal freedom, just becomes the thing. Like you suddenly realize, yeah, I'm really just, worried about me and making me the best person that I am.
Yeah.
That's okay.
And that's okay. Exactly.
That is fine and dandy.
It should fall into place eventually.
Yeah. In fact, I want to read something from Max Stirner. In fact, it was kind of fortuitous because it showed up as as a reminder today, when I was recording this, but I want to read it. This is actually from The Ego in Its Own, which Max Stirner is kind of my, he's sort of the
he's
anarchist.
Your homeboy.
He's my homeboy. The Ego in Its Own. I've long for years said that it's the best anarchist work on the planet. But anyway, here, I'm going to read it. Quote, I say, liberate yourself as far as you can, and you have done your part. For it is not given to everyone to break through all limits, or more expressively, not to everyone is that a limit which is a limit for the rest. Consequently, do not tire yourself with toiling at the limits of others. Enough if you tear down yours. He who overturns one of his limits may have shown others the way and the means. The overturning of their limits remains their affair.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah.
Hold yourself to your own standard. Don't compare yourself to other people.
Right.
You do you. You leave them alone. Let them live free. And if you've made yourself happy as best you can, you've done your part. Exactly.
And in fact, somebody commented, because I shared that again today, and somebody commented underneath it, this is beautiful. It said, this is one of the passages that really resonated with me when I was reading Ego in Its Own earlier this year from my recommendation. And he said, free yourself. It's not your responsibility or within your power, for that matter, to free the world. And that's
so wise.
That's the cincher. And that's the whole point of that whole passage.
Why did nobody listen to him?
Right. And that's kind of like the whole point of that specific brand of anarchism, is that, look, it's not in your power. It's not for you to do. It's not for you to even worry about freeing the world. You need to work on you, and kind of everything else kind of falls into place, I think.
Yeah.
And this is something I remember getting taught as a Christian when I was a Christian, was that your life is its own witness to the Bible, is its own witness to Jesus. That's kind of the idea. And I don't like to have, religious connotations or anything, but I think there's truth to that. When people see that you're happy, I think people want a piece of that. Not as in they want to steal from you. They want to know, why are you happy? Why are you perhaps so independent? I'm reminded in The Fountainhead, where Rourke is he's talking with his electrician friend, and he's saying, I figured it out. I get what these people don't like. People are envious. They're mad. They're mad at me because I don't need them. They don't like that. And I think that's so key. There is that point that you kind of get to. And when people start to see it, and when they can ask you and they can talk about it, like you did forever on Pork Therapy, that was so inspirational for me to hear, because it's I hear happiness, and I know you're going through shit at the time too. But I heard that you had it together. You had something going for you. And what you were saying was all about, how do you get free? How do you yourself, not dealing with all the bullshit, going on in Capitol Hill or something like that, or, worrying about all these different things, but just the inside, what happened, I love your saying, freedom is an inside job.
That's not my saying. That's Wes.
Oh, well,
Bertrand.
Wes Bertrand, another great guy, of course.
But yeah, freedom and happiness are both inside jobs. I think other people say that too.
Sure.
So we can't really attribute the quote to anybody in particular.
Well, you say it a lot, and I love it. And of course, what Wes has to say, I've recommended that aplenty. So, that's kind of the point I think you get to where you're like, the movement's just like, it's crazy. And you see these people seemingly like just blindly following what people who, again, have either, like openly contradicted themselves or have openly committed fraud, not just based upon the state, like what the state says is fraud, but fraud straight up.
No, yeah, personal fraud.
Yeah.
And
they just keep riding with it. They just keep rolling.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because there is this problem too where I think the liberty community as a whole is very tolerant of people who are weirdos and considered outsiders by society, and it attracts those people.
Yes.
And lumped in with the people who are just kind of socially awkward are people who are genuinely pathological.
Yes.
In different ways. They're users, they're abusers.
Yeah.
They're dangerous.
How is that not attractive to want to move, to not hang out with a movement that doesn't believe in calling the cops?
Right.
Or getting in touch with the authorities.
If you're like a real criminal who hurts people.
Yeah. I mean, that's super
of course
attractive.
It's attractive. And they realize how to take advantage of people's trust, because they know that if they say, oh yeah, I'm in this club, I'm in the liberty movement. Right. Some people are going to trust them just because of that.
Oh yeah. Big time. Big time.
And they don't flush out the real dangerous weirdos.
Yeah.
They really have trouble flushing out these people. And everybody says, oh, we need like a reputation rating system. And you've talked ad nauseum about why that doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Ostracism becomes a popularity contest. You would love to think that if you have a negative experience with someone, you can just squawk about it and everyone will take your side and ostracize them. Mm-hmm. But in reality, not everybody never takes your side.
Well, and that's a problem too. Like the idea of ostracism, which is a popular thing that gets laid out as a form of justice.
Yep.
In liberty, in the liberty movement, I guess you could say. I'm with you. I think it's a terrible idea. And for a lot of reasons, not because it affects yes, it's terrible in how it can affect how it can create really negative, like it could almost create a blowback with the person you're ostracizing, which could be a real problem. Not because of that, but because like sort of if you're a community, like if you're a movement, like a large one, you sort of have to get everybody on board and say, no, we don't talk to this person. And you're really imposing your will on somebody else. And then, that's creating a ton of pressure on that person, because then what happens if they don't agree with you about ostracizing this person? Well, then you're going to ostracize them.
Yep.
And
there's always group politics and group dynamics. And then if you ostracize somebody else on a friend's recommendation, then they might be expected to do the same thing for you at some point. And it gets so political, Well,
it gets political and eventually it gets
relationships.
It gets to the point. I mean, it gets downright incestuous. Like, I mean, almost, it gets to the point to where you're more or less either talking to yourself or you're talking to people. I mean, like there's no growth there. Right.
If you have consistent standards, you almost end up ostracizing like huge chunks of the community. In some ways. Right. So either you lower your standards or you ostracize everybody and deal with being lonely. And it's a big problem. It's a big problem, which is why I think the best bet is not to associate with large groups of people. It's just to keep it small, keep your circle small.
Yep.
You can have a lot of acquaintances if you can handle that with your brain and your social capacity.
Yeah.
But keep your inner circle small and vet those people very carefully. And I think that solves a lot of problems.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
And don't trust somebody just because they say that they're a certain whatever.
They hold a certain ideology.
Yeah, don't trust somebody because they say they're part of a certain club.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, so that's the thing, is that I think eventually, like with the liberty movement, you see how either some people just never seem to grow, or you realize that, wait a minute, I don't think any of this is even real. None of this makes a whole lot of sense. Disillusionment happens big time. And it's not because of arguments. It's not like, well, someone lost a bunch of arguments or something, so fuck this, I'm taking my ball and going home. It's nothing like that. Because, argumenting and splintering and all this different stuff, I think all that's fine. That kind of gets to the point to where you eventually get down, hopefully, to, not that you need to ostracize people, but you get down to the people that you actually want to talk to.
Yeah. And you have a limited capacity for that.
Yeah, all humans
circle
do.
Too.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's literally human nature, Dunbar's number. So I think, my disillusionment with the liberty movement in general is twofold. One is that I completely disagree with in large part what it does. I don't think Steam It is going to set anybody free. I don't think that that's real money, and so trying to convince everybody to go over to that just isn't going to work. If the liberty movement wants to really get people free, you don't build Steam It, you build MadeSafe. You build an entire other fucking internet, to get people on board with. You don't penny ante this stuff. That's how I feel on that. But then, so there's disillusionment just in what gets done, what gets said. There seems to be a lot of a lack of self-awareness, a lot of lack of understanding of history, a lot of lack of critical thinking overall. I feel like is really missing there. But then the second part is that I think like I said, you get to the point to where, there's no need for a movement. Like you just realize, no, guess what, folks? It really is all about you. It
right.
It is all about the individual at the end of the day. Like a movement is nearly antithetical to what you're trying to do. Because my goal personally, is peaceful coexistence.
Yeah.
That is not the goal of the liberty movement. The liberty movement is
to change the status quo.
Yeah. Is like really you need to be doing this. You need to be doing this. You need to be doing this. I'm all about trying, anything I talk about like on Sovereign Tech is about creating options for people. Like how do you have the most options to do what you want to do obviously without hurting anybody else?
Right.
It's all about the options. It's not about things need to be this way and this way and this way. But yeah, there's a lot of boogeymanning. There's so much crap that goes on in the liberty movement that I think is antithetical to actual liberty. That I don't agree with it. And like I said, you get down to the point to where your sole interest is just in freeing yourself, and finding other people that are on a similar path, perhaps.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel the same way, Brian. Like when you start to question just the very basic things that a movement is about, or even like the very existence of a movement, what's the point of like saying you're part of that movement?
Sure. Right.
Like what the fuck is the point?
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, like there's so many problems with association even, like, oh, you're a libertarian or you're an ANCAP. Well, this guy's an ANCAP. And while granted, that's not your problem that other people do it.
If they even know what it is in the first place, they might have a negative association with it.
Right. Not that it's your problem that people, associate you with other people. Okay. But that's something to consider to say if you are going into the business world and wanting to interact with, large amounts of people as far as that goes. There's all kinds of problems here. Mm-hmm. So, do you have any other thoughts on all with the liberty movement thing?
I think that pretty well covers it. I feel like we were super negative on it.
I am.
But we had a nuanced perspective and it took a while to get it out. The original question was like, I'm considering moving to New Hampshire.
Well, the original question was, could you talk about, where is it? Let's see.
Could
you elaborate on your perspective of the liberty movement?
Yeah.
It wasn't about New Hampshire. Like that wasn't the original thing. The original thing was about the what is my perspective on the liberty movement?
Okay. So I think we did pretty much answer that question very thoroughly. Mm-hmm. If we haven't, let us know, but
yeah. And New Hampshire, we discussed that.
That felt kind of good to share that.
Oh, it felt really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It always feels good to do a podcast with my man, but
I love you.
I love you too.
Yeah. I want to say, I want to end off with some incendiary things, but maybe I'll pass.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Be a gentleman.
I'll say them on Sovereign Tech or something and, where it's just me. But yeah, so disillusionment abounds, but it not, I'm not necessarily bitter. Like I just know that it's not a part of my path. And I think that's perfectly fine.
Yep.
So anyway, I think we don't need to mess with another question. I had a second one to get into, but it is getting late. And I want to get it posted. So
okay,
we'll just, we'll end it off there. But, yeah, New Sex and Science Hour will be out this week. That'll be out Friday, of course.
Yay. And sexandsciencehour.com.
Yeah. And then, obviously a new Sovereign Tech, will be available on Saturday, and then more content coming out next week. So if you have questions, of course, please don't hesitate to ask them through Patreon itself or through email. And thank you so much to all of the Patreon donors. And if you have concerns over anything I said, please message me first, and maybe you'll prove me wrong. Maybe I admit when I'm wrong. In fact, there's a thing I'll be talking about on Sovereign Tech this week about the whole Windows Golden Key break. Come to find out that wasn't true at all. It was crazy. So I will be saying, guess what? As I understood things, I am dead wrong. So I don't mind admitting that. So, contact me if you disagree with what I had to say about the Liberty Movement, or anything like that. But please, really come to New Hampshire. It's nice. So anyway, Carpe Lucem, everybody. Stephanie, of course, thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian,
for being on the Q&A. Let's do this. See you on the other side.
You just experienced Sovereign Tech. Go to sovereigntech.com, that's SOVRYN tech.com, and connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovereign Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.